Well, as President Trump said, the overall number still needs to be negotiated. But clearly, things like agriculture are going to start immediately. They have a lot of demand for agriculture. Energy is a very important part. We got to build a lot of LNG capabilities in terms of infrastructure, but there's going to be big long-term commitments on LNG. We specifically talked about the Alaska project, which has over 200 years supply. We talked about industrial products, automobiles. I mean, they put on the table an offer of over $1.2 trillion in additional commitments, but the details of that still need to be negotiated. But these are big numbers. But I want to emphasize, this isn't just about buying things. This is about opening up markets to U.S. companies and protecting U.S. technology. Those are very important structural issues to the president.
Mr. Secretary, those structural issues are ones that you've mentioned every time you've come on our program, and it's certainly something a lot of U.S. businesses are very concerned about. In 90 days, that seems an awful lot to lift and a lot of ground to cover and try and figure out what's going on. We've already heard from a few people this morning who are suggesting that in 90 days, it's not likely to have any agreement on those issues, and the Chinese would look for an extension of the trade truce and no new tariffs to be coming on. What happens in 90 days if we don't have a firm commitment on some of those issues you just mentioned?
Well, I think President Trump was very clear. We need to have real progress over these 90 days, and there needs to be a real commitment. Now, you're right. There are over 142 different issues that we're focused on. So every single one may not be finalized in the first phase, but that'll be up to President Trump to determine. But he expects there's going to be real progress. And I think we'll know very soon whether we have an overall agreement that we can document. Again, this was a commitment between the two presidents. Let me just add two other very important issues. China agreed to make a significant change on classifying fentanyl. That was very important to President Trump. That is going to be an enormous lifesaver in the United States. I think you know how concerned President Trump is on fentanyl. And as important, the commitment on North Korea. There is a very strong commitment between the two presidents to work together to make sure that we have a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. And I think, as you know, I've been actively involved in the sanctions. So this is something that's very important, and Secretary Pompeo has done an amazing job leading this effort.
That's great. We can talk more about that. But just again, back to this idea of if we don't have concrete progress on some of those very tough issues to try and tackle, would we see an extension at that point if we feel like we've made progress? And then how do you protect against the idea that some people have suggested, which is that the Chinese love to talk, they never follow up with these things, and their game plan would be great if they could just get these talks to continue endlessly? Is there an out date that you look at and you think we need to have something concrete by this time?
We absolutely need to have something concrete over these 90 days. And there was a very significant commitment from both leaders on what needs to be done over the 90 days and instructions to both teams to negotiate and turn this into a real agreement with specific action items, deliverables, and timeframes. This is not going to be something where there's just soft commitments that get kicked down the road. But again, I want to emphasize, this was the first time I've seen the two leaders have very, very specific discussions. We had a dinner for close to 3 hours on this. President Trump personally dictated the statement afterwards. And we will be reporting to him weekly on the progress, if not daily.